I walked into the office with my heart racing, that instinctive pressure in my chest telling me something was wrong before I could even name it. The fluorescent lights felt harsher than usual, buzzing faintly above my head like they were warning me. As I moved forward, conversation stalled. Colleagues shot each other quick glances, followed by those tight, awkward smiles people wear when they know they're guilty of something and hope you don't notice. Then I saw her. My Aunty Joan was standing in the center of the room, isolated, boxed in by coworkers who stood too close, their bodies angled toward her like predators circling something they believed was weak. She looked smaller than she should have, not because she was, but because they were trying to make her feel that way. Their voices were low, careless, cruel. Jokes slipped out, sharp and intentional. Comments about her age, about her being outdated, about how she was no longer relevant. They laughed like it was harmless, like they weren't stripping dignity from a woman who had given decades of her life to that place. They underestimated her completely, and that arrogance sat in the room like a bad smell. I heard one of them laugh behind her back, not even bothering to lower his voice enough. He assumed I wouldn't hear. He assumed I wouldn't care. That assumption was his first mistake. Joan's face tightened, her jaw locked, her lips pressed into a thin line she'd perfected over years of swallowing pain. She didn't speak. She didn't defend herself. That silence, her restraint, hit me harder than any shout could have. It wasn't weakness, it was survival, and it lit something violent inside me. The meeting started, and I watched it happen in real time. Joan offered an idea, her voice calm, steady, professional. She barely got halfway through before someone cut her off. Another rolled their eyes. The room moved on like she hadn't spoken at all. Her contribution was dismissed publicly, casually, like she was invisible. Someone leaned toward another chair and whispered, just loud enough to land like a knife. Who even listens to her anymore? Then came the laugh. Short, sharp. Satisfied. I looked at her face. The shame in Joan's eyes was unbearable. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was quiet, contained and devastating. I felt a knot tighten in my chest so hard it hurt to breathe. My hands trembled under the table as helplessness burned through me, hot and humiliating. How could they do this to her? How could they disrespect someone who had earned every ounce of space she occupied? In that moment, something inside me hardened. I didn't say it out loud. I didn't need to. I made the vow silently, deeply, with a clarity that scared me. No one would ever take her lightly again. Not like this. Not ever. The air in the room felt thick, heavy with unspoken cruelty. My hands clenched into fists so tight my nails dug into my palms. I barely noticed the pain. My mind was already replaying every insult, every look, every laugh, each one sharpened into something focused and dangerous. Justice wasn't an idea anymore. It was a necessity. Joan stood up before the meeting ended. She gathered her things quietly, the way people do when they don't want to draw attention to their breaking point. Her shoulders were hunched as she walked out, carrying the weight they had just dumped on her. Watching her leave like that filled me with a fury so intense it made my vision blur. The smell of burnt coffee and stale office air suddenly felt suffocating. It clung to my lungs, mixed with anger, humiliation, and something darker rising fast. They thought that was the end of it. They were wrong. I remembered everything the moment I was alone. Every sacrifice Joan made came rushing back like a wave I could no longer hold back. After my parents died young, she didn't hesitate. She stepped into the space they left behind and carried it like it was her duty. Her burden, her promise. No speeches, no drama, just action. She worked multiple jobs, sometimes back-to-back shifts that left her feet swollen and her eyes dull with exhaustion. Still, she never complained. Every dollar she earned went toward keeping my life stable. Clothes, school supplies, rent, food. I never once heard her ask for recognition. Never heard her say, "Look what I've done." She didn't need applause. She just needed me to survive. I remembered the late nights most clearly. Joan sitting at the kitchen table with a mug of reheated coffee, paper spread out between us. My homework felt endless back then. Her day had already been longer than it should have been, but she stayed awake anyway. Her eyes would flutter, Her shoulders slouch, but her voice stayed calm, patient, focused on me, always on me. Flashbacks hit hard. Small victories she celebrated quietly, like they mattered more than her own life. My first school award. She stood in the back of the room, clapping softly, eyes shining. My first promotion. She cooked dinner like it was a holiday, smiling like she had won something herself. She never took credit. She just stood beside me, proud and silent. What I hadn't fully understood back then was how much she had endured herself. Growing up, Joan was mocked relentlessly for her ambition. People told her she was reaching too high, dreaming too big. They underestimated her constantly, shrinking her into a version that made them comfortable. She carried those humiliations like scars no one bothered to look for. She used to tell me, "Never let them see you sweat." I thought it was advice about confidence, about strength. Standing there in that office, watching her get humiliated all over again, I realized I had ignored the deeper meaning. It wasn't about hiding weakness. It was about control, survival, power. I remembered how strong she was during family betrayals, relatives who turned cold when money got tight, promises broken, support withdrawn. Joan never made a scene. She shielded me from it all, absorbing the damage herself. She protected us in silence, taking hits she never let me see. She never retaliated, never yelled, never begged for fairness. But I know now, she carried a storm inside her, a quiet, controlled fury that never left. It waited. And suddenly, I saw the pattern. The people mocking her now weren't new villains. They were echoes, different faces, same cruelty. The same type of people who had dismissed her whole life, assuming silence meant weakness. That realization tightened something deep in my chest. This humiliation wasn't a single moment. It was cumulative. Years of disrespect stacking on top of each other, compressing into something dangerous. My protective instincts ignited fully then, fueled by gratitude and admiration that had been building since childhood. This wasn't just about what they did today. It was about everything they thought they could get away with. I remembered her smile after enduring hardship. Not loud, not triumphant, just steady, resilient. That memory hardened my resolve more than anger ever could. And I remembered her laugh. Soft, almost gentle. The laugh she used when life tried to break her and failed. I see it clearly now. That laugh wasn't peace. It was restraint. Fury wrapped in grace. That hidden fire inside her became my guide. I could almost hear her unspoken voice, calm and unwavering, cutting through my thoughts. Enough. I stopped reacting and started watching. I observed her coworkers the way hunters study terrain, quietly, patiently, memorizing patterns. I noted who spoke over others, who needed validation, who smiled while cutting deep. Their arrogance wasn't loud all the time. It was casual, lazy, the kind that comes from believing no one is paying attention. Every time they belittled Joan, something dark and heavy rolled through my chest. A storm I kept contained. A storm that grew stronger with each careless comment, each dismissive glance. I learned their rhythms quickly. Who stole credit? Who whispered poison and let others repeat it? Who pretended professionalism while dripping contempt? I saw the small provocations first. A project Joan had worked on suddenly presented under someone else's name. A sneer when she spoke during meetings. Emails filled with polite words and sharp undertones, designed to undermine without leaving fingerprints. Death by 1,000 cuts. Joan endured it all silently. That silence frustrated me more than their cruelty. I wanted her to stand up, to reclaim her dignity in front of everyone. I wanted them to choke on the shock of realizing they'd been wrong. But she didn't. She stayed composed, controlled, and that restraint made me respect her even more. So I became methodical. I documented everything. Every insult, every slight, every moment designed to shrink her. I saved emails, took notes after meetings, logged dates, names, tones. I didn't rely on memory. Memory can be denied. Evidence cannot. I began recording conversations discreetly, break room chatter, hallway whispers, office politics unfolding when people thought no one important was listening. Slowly, a detailed map formed. Who led the cruelty? Who followed? Who pretended neutrality while benefiting from it? Then the line was crossed. It happened in the cafeteria, loud, public. One of them mocked Joan openly, making a joke about her old school ideas while others laughed into their lunches. Joan stood there, tray in her hands, frozen for half a second too long. That was all it took. My pulse spiked, my hearing sharpened. The room narrowed until all I could see was the smug curve of his smile. Revenge stopped being a thought experiment in that moment. It became a plan with a timeline. I noticed a colleague who had once defended Joan start to hesitate. Their support wavered. Silence replaced solidarity. Betrayal doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like someone looking away when it matters most. The boss made it worse. Joan spoke in meetings and got ignored. Her ideas floated in the air unacknowledged until someone else repeated them and received praise. I watched it happen again and again. Each time raised the stakes. This wasn't just cruelty, it was systematic erasure. So I started planting seeds. Nothing obvious, nothing reckless. Just subtle moves, quiet questions, gentle nudges, letting people reveal themselves while believing they were in control. I didn't rush. I let arrogance do the work for me. Through it all, Joan remained unaware. She trusted people, trusted systems, trusted decency. That unbroken faith in humanity only deepened my admiration and my resolve. She didn't see what I was building around her. She didn't need to. Every insult now felt personal. Every slight landed like a direct challenge. They weren't just attacking her. They were daring someone to stop them. I began imagining the end game, how their confidence would crumble, how the truth would surface, how their laughter would die in their throats when they realized they had underestimated the wrong woman and the wrong witness. They thought no one was paying attention. They were wrong. The message arrived without a name. No greeting, no signature, just facts laid out with surgical precision. Dates, names, meetings I hadn't attended, decisions made behind closed doors. As I read, my hands went cold. The full scale of what they had done to Joan unfolded line by line, and the truth hit me harder than any insult ever could. This wasn't personal. This was systematic. They had planned it, coordinated it, reduced her influence piece by piece, stripping her authority while smiling to her face. Committees formed without her, credit rerouted deliberately. Narratives planted quietly so no single moment could be blamed. They weren't reacting to her. They were eliminating her. Shock burned through me, sharp and electric. All this time, I thought I was watching cruelty. What I was really seeing was a strategy. And suddenly, everything made sense. Their arrogance wasn't accidental. It was armor. They believed they were untouchable. They believed no one was watching closely enough. They believed I was powerless, just another presence in the room, irrelevant to their endgame. That belief was about to cost them everything. My phone rang late that night. The number wasn't saved. I almost didn't answer. When I did, a voice I hadn't expected filled the silence. Steady, low, cautious. An ally. Someone I never thought would step forward. They didn't waste time. "You're not imagining it," they said. "It's worse than you think." They confirmed everything. The secret discussions, the manipulation, the names I hadn't connected yet. My suspicions weren't paranoia, they were late recognition. I hung up and sat there in the dark, breathing slowly, feeling the shape of what was coming lock into place. Then Joan spoke to me. Not about work, about the past. She told me stories she had never shared before. Betrayals that cut deeper than this one. People she trusted who smiled while pushing her aside. Promises broken quietly so no one else would notice. As she spoke, her voice stayed calm, but I heard the weight behind every word. My empathy deepened into something harder, more focused. This wasn't just about defending her now. It was about answering every injustice she had swallowed before. That's when I saw it. The shift. One of the key players, the loudest voice, the most confident, had cracks, financial irregularities, ethical shortcuts, quiet corruption buried under layers of authority. They weren't as clean as they pretended. They weren't as safe as they believed. The revelation landed fully then. Revenge couldn't be emotional. It had to be calculated. Public, irreversible, not loud chaos, but precise collapse. I planned the timing meticulously. Every step measured, every reveal aligned. No rushing, no mercy disguised as hesitation. Each move had to land with maximum impact, not just for justice, but for memory, so they would never forget what underestimating her had cost them. The sensory memory of Joan's humiliation guided me. The look in her eyes, the silence after the laughter. That memory sharpened my focus, kept my hands steady when doubt tried to creep in. Adrenaline surged through me, tangled with fear and something righteous and uncontrollable. This was it. The moment where the balance tipped, where power shifted hands without anyone realizing it yet. I understood then what I had become. Not just a witness, not just family. I was her protector, her strategist, her avenger. And the cracks started to show. Small victories came first. A lie exposed quietly. Credit returned without explanation. A narrative corrected in passing, leaving confusion behind it. Nothing dramatic, just enough to destabilize them. Just enough to make them uneasy. The tension reached a breaking point inside me. The storm I had been holding back finally had direction. Purpose. The chaos I was preparing mirrored the fury I'd been containing for too long. Through it all, Joan remained unaware. She moved through her days with calm dignity, trusting the world more than it deserved. A silent anchor in the chaos I was about to unleash. She didn't see the wave forming behind her. She didn't need to. Because when it would hit for her. The morning of the meeting, the office hummed with routine ignorance, completely unaware of the storm about to descend. I had chosen this moment carefully. A room filled with witnesses, each one seated comfortably, thinking the status quo would hold. This was the perfect stage. Every detail mattered. Every angle calculated. I began systematically. One by one, I presented the evidence I had collected over weeks. Emails, recordings, subtle manipulations they had thought invisible. The lies unraveled in front of them, precise and undeniable. Each coworker shifted uneasily as their carefully constructed facades cracked under the weight of exposure. Joan stood frozen at first. Her eyes widened, disbelief written across her face. And then, slowly, understanding dawned. Shock gave way to a quiet pride that filled her posture, straightening shoulders that had carried so much unseen weight for years. The humiliation that had been forced upon her melted away, replaced by the radiance of vindication. I pulled out legal documents, subtly, without drama, letting the facts speak for themselves. Breaches in ethics, financial manipulation, deliberate undermining, all laid bare. Their laughter, their sneers, all evaporated under the clarity of truth. There was no escape, no spin, no way to claim innocence. The law itself backed the justice being served. Then came the public apology, forced but inescapable. One by one they stood, their faces paling as they read their own misdeeds reflected in evidence they could not deny. The room went still, the air thick with tension. Arrogance crumbled, fear rising in its place. I watched the pride that had carried them vanish, replaced by the realization of their miscalculation. And Joan finally spoke. Her voice was quiet at first, but the room leaned in, drawn to the authority that had always been there but ignored. Every eye turned to her as she articulated, with calm clarity, the respect and dignity that had been denied for so long. The power in her words was undeniable, commanding attention, forcing recognition. I timed each reveal with precision. The betrayals, the manipulations, the moments they thought would remain hidden, all highlighted in a way that elicited gasps, murmurs, the shifting of uncomfortable chairs. The office hierarchy collapsed quietly, methodically. Those who had underestimated her scrambled, their panic palpable but ineffective. Joan's dignity was restored in full. The corners of her lips lifted into a smile, subtle at first, then growing as triumph tinged it with warmth and relief. Her laughter returned, soft and victorious, echoing in the room as a quiet declaration of power regained. The confrontation ended in silence. The weight of justice settled like a storm finally clearing, leaving only clarity and reckoning. I felt a cold satisfaction watching the guilty squirm, knowing they faced the consequences of their arrogance. yet without ever stooping to cruelty. Every insult, every snide comment, every public dismissal was now reversed, etched in their memories as a lesson they could not ignore. Joan's victory was absolute. Personal wounds healed, systemic power reclaimed. Her presence in that room was no longer questioned. Her authority was undeniable, her strength visible to all. The office had learned the cost of underestimating her, and I had watched silently as justice finally arrived. The office felt different the next day. Air seemed lighter, yet charged, as if the walls themselves had absorbed the reckoning. Respect for Joan no longer needed to be demanded. It was earned, visible in every glance, every careful word. The atmosphere had shifted permanently. No one dared challenge her again. I sank into my chair, letting the tension that had gripped me for months settle slowly. My mind replayed every calculated step, every patient maneuver, every moral decision weighed carefully. Strategy, patience, and the sheer weight of justice. It had all mattered. The depth of it pressed on me even now, a silent reminder of what had been required to protect her. Joan approached quietly, eyes shining with emotion she didn't speak. A simple thank you passed between us, but it carried the weight of everything we'd endured. No words could fully convey it, and none were needed. I understood her completely in that glance. I noticed the subtle changes around me. Allies now watched her with renewed respect. Their loyalty deepened. Enemies approached with caution, fear flickering behind their eyes. The consequences of their arrogance lingered, a quiet lesson etched into the office psyche. Legal and financial repercussions followed swiftly, each one sealing the justice that had been orchestrated so meticulously. No loose ends remained. The power shift was tangible, undeniable, permanent. I felt a complex mix of relief and lingering adrenaline. The storm had passed, yet its echo remained in my chest. Joan began mentoring others now, guiding them with the same quiet authority she had always embodied, her confidence fully restored and radiating. Colleagues who once ignored her now sought her counsel, acknowledging her rightful authority with subtle nods and careful deference. I watched, mentally documenting every moment, recognizing the cinematic arc we had traversed. Humiliation, struggle, and ultimately, triumph. The bond between Joan and me deepened, forged in the fire of shared survival and silent understanding. The office had transformed into a place of cautious respect. No one dared undermine her again. Whispers of admiration, quiet acknowledgments, small gestures of recognition, all became markers of victory. Sitting back, I reflected on it all. Strategy, patience, loyalty, and unwavering protection. They had carried the day. The quiet victories, the subtle triumphs, the restoration of dignity and authority, they were ours. And in that reflection, I understood the power we had wielded, not through cruelty, but through calculated, righteous justice. I want you to imagine this with me. Listen closely. My voice carries the weight of what we endured, the pride of what we reclaimed. The office, the colleagues, the arrogance. They all thought Joan was just another quiet presence. They were wrong. And I want you to feel the cost of underestimating someone whose strength hides beneath calm eyes and soft smiles. Think of the transformation. From humiliation that crushed her spirit to empowerment that radiated through every corner of that room. From despair, watching others strip her of dignity, to triumph as every insult, every lie, was exposed and reversed. That shift wasn't accidental. It was deliberate. It was earned. And it's a reminder that the quiet ones carry storms waiting for the right moment. Joan's resilience. The resilience she never boasted about is what carried her, and it should inspire you. Look around you. Who in your life is overlooked, dismissed, or underestimated? Honor them. Protect them. Respect them. Their strength may be invisible until it demands recognition. The confrontation we orchestrated was high stakes, a true test of patience, strategy, and courage. Let it serve as a cautionary tale, but also as a guide. A lesson that meticulous observation, careful planning, and unwavering loyalty can overturn even the most entrenched power. Learn to notice the signs, the subtle manipulations, the quiet betrayals. Observe carefully. Step in when needed. Respect the underestimated. Protect the overlooked. That is how justice is enacted without chaos, without unnecessary cruelty, and with precision. There are secrets in patience, in strategy, in waiting for the perfect moment. We use them. You can too. Timing, calm calculation, and moral clarity are weapons as sharp as any words or actions. Never rush, never underestimate the quiet, never assume invisibility equals weakness. Remember this as you go forward. The power of justice, patience, and love is unstoppable when wielded wisely. Hold it close. Let it guide your actions, your decisions, and your alliances. Comment, share, reflect. Look at the hidden strength around you and recognize it before it becomes undeniable. And never forget, never underestimate the storm quietly brewing beside you. Watch Joan now. Her smile is subtle but victorious. Her authority is clear, unchallenged, and absolute. The camera lingers on her, capturing the culmination of dignity restored, power reclaimed, and lessons learned. This story, our story, is more than revenge. It is a blueprint, a cinematic journey from pain to empowerment, a reminder that respect, patience, and loyalty are forces that can topple arrogance and vindicate the underestimated. The echo of this moment will linger, a testament to what happens when hidden strength is finally recognized.